All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, everyone. I want to welcome you out to our third annual Opioid Summit. Give you a hand for getting up so early in the morning. I'm Commissioner Larry Johnson. I'm going to welcome you all to District 3. This is our area. I've been serving this community for about 17 years as your county commissioner. And you're at the Port of Sanford Performing Arts Center. We built this is our 10th anniversary of this arts center, and so we have if everybody like acting, the acting classes here. You can do your socials here. In the next couple of weeks, next door, I finally got the funding. We're going to do a 1,000-seat outdoor amphitheater right here in our community. So it's going to connect with our gardens. We have a garden, so any resident in DeKalb who want to plant their own garden, they can do it free of charge. So it's going to be our environmental park. And so this is all part of our performing arts. Then around the corner is the first intergenerational center in the Southeast. So we got an indoor walking track, weight room, computers. I added a spray park, so if anybody have kids or want to get in a spray park, we have that as well. And so this total campus is about $30 million, and we're working on to make a difference. So I always like for you to know the assets that we have in DeKalb and South DeKalb in our area. We also are currently doing some things that are going to be close to Cedar Grove High School. Let's give it up for our saints, the saints in the house. I want to give it up for the Stroger sisters, the teachers, I call them just the best advocates in the world. Would you all please stand? I want to give them a hand. They're the ones who come from Cedar Grove, the staff and teachers. But we're looking at building the world's largest movie studios. And it'll be right there in that Boulder Crest area. Right now they're filming Jumanji. The movie's being filmed there right now. Godzilla was filmed there. But if everything go right, we create about 1,000 jobs. But part of it is we're going to make sure that Cedar Grove, as well as McNair High School, can have a pipeline to the movie industry. Because every job, when I went over to the studio a couple of months ago, no job was under $100,000. Every job there was $100,000 and more. So what we're working on to make sure Cedar Grove and McNair can have an opportunity to get jobs in the art and entertainment field. Not just being an actor, actress, a writer. So I want y'all to be prepared for that, and that's something that we're working on. As a commissioner, I'm committed to making sure our youth are served and that you get the best and brightest that DeKalb has to offer. And so thank you all for coming. Now I'll get back on my little script. I think I messed up because I wasn't supposed to move from this podium because of the camera. But I just want to acknowledge elected officials. Any elected officials are here. I want to acknowledge you. And all right, they may be coming in. A lot of them said they'll be here a little later. We do have one that's going to be part of my program, Commissioner Mills out of Forsyth County. And she's going to talk about how they're tackling the issues in Forsyth County. Opioids is a big problem in that part of the county. And so she's been a hero in making things happen. I want to acknowledge Aetna. Where's Aetna? Y'all saw Aetna table out there. Give Aetna a hand, one of our sponsors. Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority, give them a great hand. Wave your hand, Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority. Lisa Flagg is the president. Stand up, Lisa. This is the president. And then the CEO and a chair of the board is Dr. Harley. Stand up. They're important because anybody ever go to Grady Hospital, go past Grady Hospital? They're the ones who oversee Grady Hospital in terms of leasing the building. So we're in the process of building a $200 million outpatient surgery facility and also a HIV/AIDS facility right there on Ponce de Leon to make sure we can tackle that issue. We also have Emory University. Emory, wave your hand, give it up for Emory University. DeKalb Community Service Board. Where's DeKalb Community Service Board? Where are you? Give them a great hands where you go get our mental health services. Stan Inc., those nice orange shirts. Where's Sperling and the staff from Stan Inc.? Every year, give them a great hand. We appreciate them so much. Also, the DeKalb County School District. Thank Dr. Stephen Green. And the schools are the McNair High School, Columbia High School, Southwest DeKalb, and Cedar Grove. Let's give them another great hand for being a part. Now I would like to begin by bringing up each of our panelists, speakers will have a couple of minutes, but I want to also thank especially up front Dr. Richard Ritchie. Where is he? I just wanted to thank him. He's going to speak later. 1380 WAOK. Anybody listen to that show, The Realest Man? Yeah. All right. Y'all give it up for him. And he is an advocate, just a educational person who's really for the community. And I appreciate and love him for what he's doing to make a difference in our community. So I'm glad that he is hosting. And some of you all may be pulled out of the classes because we're doing a live remote with 1380 from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So you'll get people hear you all over the country. And I want you all to tell the story on what we're doing here locally in DeKalb County. So now I will bring up Dr. Harley to the stage. She's the founder of the Harley Institute, which specializes in preventative and wellness. And she's also the chair of the Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority. Then after her, Frank Ulibarri will come up, and he's the president of Aetna of Georgia, Louisiana, Alabama, and Mississippi. Let's give them both a great hand as they come up in their own way.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. It's a pleasure to be here this morning. The Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority is the owner of the Grady Health System. So as you can imagine, Grady, who serves, we probably had over 500,000 visits to Grady Hospital last year. So we are on the forefront of this opioid crisis and epidemic. But before I get into that, I wanted to say and acknowledge a thank you to our Commissioner, Larry Johnson. I'm sure you know this, but Larry Johnson, I met, I think, 10 years ago when I got appointed to the board. I was very impressed. And being a part of this community, 33 years in DeKalb, I am so proud to have a commissioner that understands the impact of healthcare and that has championed the healthcare issues we've had in our community and has partnered with the Fulton DeKalb Hospital Authority on several of these issues. So I just wanted to say thank you, Commissioner Johnson. Now, with that being said, actually, when I started private practice, I don't think I told anybody this. My very first office was in South DeKalb Office Park, right on Rainbow Drive. So it's amazing to me how we have built this community and we have great leadership in DeKalb. So I'm really honored and happy about that. In terms of the opioid crisis, what we're seeing initially when we became aware of this crisis, the dialogue primarily was in the white population. But now it's becoming increasingly evident that we are very much impacted in the African American community. In terms of what the data is, we're still not clear, but what we do know is that when it comes to death from opioid overdose, the African American population, we are now starting to close the gap in deaths from opioid overdose. So this is an area we really need to look at. And initially when it started, institutional bias might have protected us a little bit. Because historically speaking in medicine, we know African American population, we have a problem with access to care. And one of those biases, number one, when we looked at it, prescribing physicians, because a lot of this problem with epidemics had to do with prescribing physicians, right? So when your provider does not look like you, that implicit bias is number one. Well, they tend to be more of addictive personality, so we don't get prescribed as many prescription narcotics. The other thing is they think, well, we have a higher pain threshold, so we never were in that system of getting prescribed narcotics. Our problem was more crack epidemic. The other thing is that over a period of time, that implicit bias, we weren't dying as much from prescribed narcotics. But now, when we looked at what the data is, it's not clear, but it looks as if between the heroin and fentanyl that is on the black market, they might be combining it with illicit drugs. So now the death rate is catching up with the Caucasian population. So I think the topic for a healthcare summit this morning is very well timed, and I look forward to listening to the speakers, and I thank Larry Johnson for bringing this to the forefront, and any way that we can partner with you at Grady, please let us know. Thank you, Commissioner Johnson.
Well, good morning, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. It's a beautiful day. We've got these youth here, and I'm really excited to participate like we have in years past. My name is Frank Ulibarri. I'm the president for Aetna here in Georgia, and we are grateful and honored to partner again with Commissioner Johnson, with Charles Sterling and Stand, and to sponsor this really important opioid summit. This is the third year. And I have to tell you, every year that I've come, I've been inspired, learned so much about this important challenge in our community. I wanted to let you know just a little bit about Aetna. So our regional headquarters are here, and we administer or provide insurance for just about 1 million people across 4 states. And some of those people that we provide insurance for are common names: Cox, Emory, DeKalb Healthcare, Home Depot, and others. But we also provide insurance to very small companies. Joe's Mechanic Shop, Betty's accounting firm, and all of these people are very, very important to us, are important customers and clients. We have, with Aetna, 900 employees or more in the state of Georgia, and we just joined with CVS. We became a member of the CVS family of health companies, and when you combine our employees and all of the thousands of CVS employees across the state of Georgia, this is our community. We live here, we work here, our children go to school here, we go to church here, and the challenges that face our community, we deeply care about. And I want to let you know that the opioid epidemic, we are deeply concerned about. I want to tell you a couple things that we're doing just briefly as a company. We have been inspired by good and faithful public servants like Commissioner Johnson, and we have sponsored workshops, symposiums, and conferences like this all across the country based on what we're doing here today, trying to get the dialogue going across the country so that we can face these things in our communities. One of the things that we've done in our company, we have been using data and analytics, and we have tried to identify in our insurance programs people that could be suffering from an opioid addiction. And we put together a special team. We call them our guardian angels, and they can outreach to people that may be suffering from addiction, help them to realize where they are in their lives, and then help them find resources to tackle their own problems and find recovery options for them. We're proud to do that for them, and we're excited to help them overcome their challenges. One of the other things we do, again, using data and analytics, we provide some very actionable reports to physicians who are prescribing medications. We want them to see and understand and have at their fingertips information that will help them to avoid overprescription of opioids. We're also working with physicians and other providers to find other therapies for pain management. There are 2 concepts that are kind of interesting that are being talked about, and I'm sure some of our medical professionals can talk more about this later on in the day. Something called multimodal treatment and medication assisted treatment. It's basically, instead of just using opioids as a way to treat pain, there are other powerful and effective ways of controlling pain, And we can either avoid the opioids completely in pain management, or we can lessen their use for someone who has an issue with pain. And so we're helping providers understand these options and use them more and more so that the potential for addiction is going down. I was interested. I saw a report recently from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, and the report documented opioid use across Georgia. And this is an issue that affects rural Georgia and certainly affects our community here in Greater Atlanta. It was concerning to see that the rate of opioid use in Greater Metro Atlanta is more severe. And again, it kind of gets back to, this is our community. We live here, we work here, and this is why Aetna is here. We want to make a difference in our community, partnering with STAND, partnering with Commissioner Johnson. I would say this: every time I come to this summit, I get a deeper and better perspective on what we're facing. I leave with actionable information that helps me go back to my family, to my company, and come up with better solutions of things that we can do. And ultimately, I'm inspired. I'm inspired that we have great people in our communities that care about these important issues, and that we're moving forward in tackling these problems. So I wish you a really good day. It's going to be a fantastic day, and we're very grateful to be here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Let's give our two speakers a great hand. Thank you. And part of this is for our young people here. It's a teachable moment. So you see people from Aetna, you see people from Grady, you see people from Stan Inc. Part of it is I want you to network as well. Because anybody ever look for an internship? I know y'all are rich. Anybody ever need a job? So let me see your hand if you ever need a job. You're in high school, you ever need a job. Okay, so this is an opportunity when you see these folks and the sponsors on this wall. Make sure you go up there and introduce yourself and talk to them about your future and what you're doing, because you can't be what you can't see. So you got to be in the field. You just can't read about it. You got to go in there and study and get your hands on. So I want you to use this opportunity as a networking opportunity for you all to connect with these companies, because you never know what type of resources or job opportunities will be available for you. Now, as we get ready for our first panel, I want to just introduce our MC, our moderator, Dr. Rashard Ritchie. I know he's in our program, but I just want to highlight some things for you, because Dr. Ritchie grew up in the foster care system. Dr. Ritchie went to school here in DeKalb County in Towers High School. Dr. Ritchie has a doctorate degree and also working on another doctorate degree. Dr. Ritchie is a commentator on Fox News. He's on CBS 46 and Peachtree TV. He's also he's up for Emmy this year as well. So you're getting someone who is homegrown, who has made it through all of the barriers and still making a difference in our community. And that's why I wanted him to be a part of this. He's experienced a life as a foster child, encountered true despair during those years. He finished his master's in business administration at Beulah Heights University. He's an executive leadership from Cornell University through the SC College of Business. He continues to serve on boards of directors at litany of organizations. He's a proud member of the Atlanta Press Club, the American Association of University Professors, the National Association of Black Journalists, Atlanta NAACP. And 2 weeks ago, he did something so profound. He brought together over 400 gangs in the metro Atlanta, the Crips, the Bloods, the Disciples, the Vice Lords, and he helped them sign a peace treaty. Isn't that something? Come on, y'all. So we got a brother that keeps it real. They're going to bring it to you straight. And I want to introduce to some and present to others Dr. Rashard Ritchie, who will be our panelist. He was our moderator as well.
That was very kind. Very kind. Bless you. How y'all feel? Y'all can sound better than that. How y'all feel? Before we bring up the panelists, I just wanted to share a few words with our young folk, because I'm not far separated from you in culture. I love our music. Y'all feel what I'm saying? How many of y'all rock with Migos? 2 Chainz. J. Cole. Now, let me tell you what's refreshing about our brother J. Cole. J. Cole came in the game, and the one thing he did is kept it authentic. Would you not agree? But I want you to understand that there's a shift in the culture, and that shift in the culture is reflected in our community. Now, when I was growing up, I listened to folks like Master P. Y'all remember Master P, y'all? Still kind of rock, you know. But Master P, even though it was bad, Master P talked about selling dope. Now, T.I. will argue that he was the first cat that created trap music. I always disagree with Tip. I say, Tip, it was really Master P who first came out with that. But now when you look at the music, no one really talking about selling dope. They're talking about doing dope. Can I just keep it real with y'all? They're not talking about selling it. They're talking about being on it and bragging about using it. Now, both are bad in context. But what happened? Why did the shift happen to glorify drug use? Because we accepted the shift when they glorified drug dealing. I just wanted to help y'all with that. I'm proud to see you here. I am every day thankful to God because I'm a living and walking testimony of what can happen. Glad to see everybody in attendance, Mr. Sperling and everyone. To our commissioner who always organizes these remarkable events in Stand Incorporated. Can we give all of our organizers a great round of applause, please? Thank you for all that you do to make a difference in the world. So my job is to bring up the panelists. My time will be short because right at 10 o'clock, I have to jump outside in the lobby area and broadcast from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. for a live remote. So I think the commissioner will come up and finish the panel. But I ask you, please, if you represent an organization, even if you're one of our youth attending here today, come holler at me in the front. Let me put you on air and let's talk about why this is important to you, okay? Y'all can agree to do that with me? All right, I'm here from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. broadcasting live. All right, let me first introduce my good friend and my mentor. He is the founder and director of Stand Incorporated, a community-based nonprofit with a 19-year history of providing behavioral health services in Metro Atlanta. He holds a master's degree from National Louis University and has a plethora of experience in the area. Welcome, Mr. Charles Sperling. Next up is Dr. Ralph Harris, researcher, chief of behavioral health sciences for Clinical Research Institute, and active member of Drug Free Coalition CPAW Rockdale, collaborative member, Georgia Prescription Drug Abuse Prevention Initiative, and member of the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Certification Board of Georgia. Let's welcome Dr. Ralph Harris. Thank you for being here. Now, I didn't see her walking in, but maybe she's around here. Is my sister Antoinette Tuff here? How you doing, darling? It is good to see you. You really need no introduction, but I got to give you one because that's what they're telling me to do. On August 19th, 2013, y'all remember that day? Mm-hmm. Miss Antoinette Tuff was a school bookkeeper, severely depressed that her husband of 33 years had recently left, and she was facing the daunting challenges of raising a son with multiple disabilities and a daughter-in-law as a single mom. But that day, she became a hero. And she was able to disarm a man with a gun, and it did not take her having a gun also. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Antoinette Tuff continues that fight. Thank you. Originally from Decatur, Georgia, graduated from Savannah State University with a Bachelor of Science degree in biology, later completing her MPA, Master of Public Health, from Georgia State University. For the past 4 years, she's worked in public health at both state and community levels. A remarkable young sister. I've had the pleasure of getting to know Ms. Rio Green. A person who's in long-time recovery, but is happy and joyous and free since December of 2013. She says she found her freedom from self-pity, selfishness, and loneliness. Now she has a life without drugs and alcohol. She has a lot of credentialing behind her name. You can find her bio. But ladies and gentlemen, Miss Sheree Vandevander. Vandevander. All right, sorry about that. Thank you, sister. And last but not least, we have a juvenile probation supervisor, has a Master of Education, works at DeKalb County Juvenile Court. I'm going to try to pronounce this correctly. Hyacinth Douglas? Yes, that's correct. Thank you, I got one right. Y'all give me a round of applause. Thank you, sister, for being here with us. Remarkable background as a youth development coordinator and youth advocate. We appreciate everyone on the panel. So here's what I would like to do, because these are all very versed experts in their field. I just want to give everyone a 2 or 3 minute opportunity to tell you who they are and what their background is, and then we'll get into a panel discussion. And I know at some point we will open this up for Q&A from the audience. And young people, I really encourage you to make sure you engage these experts on the panel, because these are our current leaders. You are our future leaders. And Mr. Sperling, I will start with you.
So my name is Charles Sperling, and I want to thank Commissioner Larry Johnson for making this our 3rd annual event looking at this opioid epidemic. This is something that's hard to pull together, and it's just as difficult having this conversation about opioids and how it affects our community. So I want to first begin by taking my hat off or tipping my hat to him for continuously bringing these issues to the community. My name is Charles Sperling, and I'm the director for STAND Incorporated. I'm the founder and director of that particular organization. My background, first of all, I'm a man of long-term recovery, and what that means for me has been more than 30 years since I had a drink or a drug.
Amen.
So I also, as I mentioned earlier, have a degree in business, so I'm able to talk about this disease of addiction, whether it's opioids or whether it's crack cocaine or whether it's methamphetamine or marijuana, cannabis as we call it in the field, from an experiential position as well as an academic one. So STAND Incorporated has been around for 20 years, and I won't take up a lot of time talking about it, because in my time having an opportunity at the mic, I will talk more about what STAND is and what STAND does. Glad you're here.
Hi, my name is Hi, my name is Sheree. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and what that means to me is since December of 2013, I have not felt the need to use anything to suppress how I feel. Today, I'm very, very blessed to be a part of this, to be able to speak out loud, and 6 years ago, that wouldn't have been the case. I started at age 13, and it just progressed. It progressed from cannabis to other use, just other use. And I also grew up in the foster care system. I also grew up in different diverse communities. So today I get to use that background to speak out and to help advocate, educate, and make a difference. So thank you. I work with Chris 180 as a peer specialist. I work at the Treehouse program. I'm a CARES, which is a Certified Addiction Recovery Empowerment Specialist. That is my favorite credential that I own. It's my most favorite because with that carries a lot of pride and joy. A lot of pride and joy. Today, I just get to work with kids like y'all because my program is a youth program from ages 13 to 24, and I get to reach out to them and tell them, you know what, there's a different way, there's a different path. Thank you.
Can you hear me? There we go. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Hyacinth Douglas, and I actually, this is not working.
Here you go.
Thank you. And I work with the DeKalb County Juvenile Court. First, I wanted to thank Commissioner Johnson and his staff for putting this wonderful summit on, because this is such a major important message that needs to be sent. I work primarily with at-risk youth at juvenile court, but also when I'm not working with youth in the juvenile court, I also work with kids doing some volunteer work, teaching how to play netball as well as some life skills, social skills. That's what I do in my life outside of work. And I do those things because I have a passion for working with kids and working with young people. We have so much to share. And one of the things that we look at doing both in my paid work and my volunteer work is making sure we create a pathway that is healthy and going to be a lifelong learning experience for kids. I had a pleasure of going to a book opening about 3-4 weeks ago. A friend of mine, Dr. D.T. Foster, actually wrote a book on opioid. And so Monday when I got to work, I was told I was coming to this summit. How ironic, meaning that I'm supposed to be here. So I'm looking forward to talking with you guys, answer any questions I have, and provide any kind of information necessary to make sure that we all, as a community, create a pathway free of drugs and make sure that we live a healthy lifestyle.
I'm Antoinette Tuff, and it's a pleasure to be here with you all today. I thank Commissioner Johnson and all of those who put this together so we can come back and make a difference in the next generation. What I wanted to do after August 20 of 2013 of being held hostage was allow my platform to speak for me and to give a safe place that our youth could be able to know that their voices could be heard, and no matter what it looks like for you today, you can always change your tomorrow. And I do that by going back into that school district and launching my own mentoring program. I started off in elementary, and the reason why I did that was because I want you all to be able to have a safe place when you're young, and so you can come back to repurpose and come back and hit your communities when you get in middle school and high school, and not just go just to middle and high. It comes about how do you go back and make a foundation. And what I wanted to do was use my platform to make a foundation for my youth. For me, all my kids, every child that comes in contact with me are my babies. So I got babies all over the world. And one thing that we do is we come back on my day, which is August the 25th and the 27th in the state of Georgia, and April the 30th in the state of Texas, and I give out scholarships to kids all over the world. We come back and I have a mentoring program back in the school district where the gunman held me hostage in elementary school and middle and high school. I also learned when me doing the mentoring program that my kids couldn't read. And I need you all to be able to know what kind of designer diapers I want to put on when I need them. You know what I'm saying? Just a good designer. I just want that one that's going to be real cute on me when I get to that point. And the only way to do that is to be able to teach my children how to read in elementary school. So when you get to middle and high school, you don't struggle so much or you don't drop out, because one thing I've learned in that is like teachers may say, oh, Joey is bad or Joey is this. No, he's not. You ain't teach him to read in elementary, so when he gets to middle and high school, that's going to come out somewhere. And so I want to be able to come back and be the safe haven, so when you go into schools and you go into the communities, you know how to read those contracts when somebody comes to you with one. You know how to read the job application when somebody comes, and if it's good for you or not good for you, if it's lining up with your mission. And so what we do is we come back and do that. The other thing that we do is I come back and we do town hall meetings. I have my chairman here, which is Jordan. I come back and get kids. So if you decide, oh, Ms. Tuff, I really want to do something, you need to come over there and hit my table so we can make your dream a reality. Jordan came to me a few weeks ago and he says, Ms. Tuff, I really want to have my own nonprofit. Really? He says, yes. Now he's sitting at my table so he can learn how to run his nonprofit. He's the chairman of my Youth Trailblazers. Why? So he can be able to see what he needs to do. He gets free training for free. Ain't no better way to do that. So when you decide you want to go and do something in your life, let's come and see what that looks like for you, so that reality in your dream can now say, oh, I'm doing that. And so those are the things that I wanted to do. I live in Texas, and I came back to DeKalb County first before we take it all over the world and expanded My 3 states that I'm going to go to, we're in Texas and Georgia now. My next 2 states are Chicago and Washington, D.C. But I wanted to come back to DeKalb County first to make a difference in my community first before we take kids all over. And so I'll say to you today that no matter what it looks like for you, no matter what it seems like for you, always know that tomorrow is going to shine and you always got another day to start all over.
Good morning. My name is Ralph Harris. I'm a forensic psychologist, a researcher, and educator, but most of all, I'm an advocate. I've been working in the Georgia juvenile justice system or court system for about 10, 15 years. Most of all, incarceration is not an option for our kids. There's more things for us to do. I work in diversion programs where we begin to work with the families and the adolescents and the youth to get them to overcome drugs, working as a family unit. My goal, and again, I thank Commissioner Johnson because this is so vital, is that we don't reach our people. We think that we don't understand society ill as far as peer pressure, bullying, gangs. And this all is inclusive to the behavior. So when you get arrested for an issue, there is more than you just a mistake. A lot of times we hear about the marijuana, legalizing marijuana, but not understanding the THC content. Most of you guys don't even know that most of your loud that you're smoking is laced with black tar heroin and brown sugar heroin. So when you go get a job, you say, well, I got 60 days on my drugs, or the system is out of my system, there's no more THC in my system, but oh, we have opioids in your system. So then you go from a class 1A cannabis charge to an illicit drug charge because of the heroin. And so I just want you guys to realize that people out here that work and to help with you. I worked also with, we were the first juvenile drug court in the state of Georgia in Newton County. I worked with Fulton County Community Court, which we deal with drug trafficking and human trafficking, not realizing that introduction to heroin is a gateway to sexual exploitation. You don't realize, we see the injections, we see the oxy pill, but you don't know once you get to that level of high with that brown sugar or that brown tar heroin and your marijuana, you want to go to the next fix. So injectables become an option. Today, it's not an option for us. We need to educate. We need to look at the dynamics of our families. A lot of us are codependent because we deal with parents who are addicted to alcoholism and other drugs. Also, we talk about the opiate crisis here. The biggest population of addiction opiate crisis is like 50 and above. Pain management, overprescribed by a physician, and then leaving medications in the household and kids or young people experiment. I deal with Rockdale County. We have a drop box for the drugs. We have a school program. We have programs in our community where we give certificates to our merchants for not selling alcohol to underage individuals. So again, I think as we approach this situation, it's holistically. I deal with the Minorities AIDS Initiative for 4 years under SAMHSA, which dealt with the continual care, COC. We dealt with substance abuse, mental health, HIV, Hep C, and also hypertension and blood pressure, not realizing all these are risk factors to your health. When your parents, grandparents come in with hypertension, where's these symptoms coming from? And a lot of times it's exacerbated by what's going on in the home. So today, we're here to help, to let you know there's hope. There's not always a traditional incarceration as the means of helping somebody, but there's treatment and support. And how do we build our networks, like on this panel today? Each other. We can reach out and we develop our own networks. So today I'm here as an advocate, and just I'm glad to see you guys here. We need ambassadors in our community to help with this crisis.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sheree Green, and I am currently Program Coordinator of Project Connect Prevention at Stand Incorporated. It is a prevention education program targeted to young adults between the ages of 13 to 24, using the Color It Real curriculum, which emphasizes hip-hop culture as well as African-American history to encourage safer sex practices as well as the decrease of substance use. So I got into this field initially, graduating from Savannah State University in 2014 with an interest in medicine as well as infectious diseases, and continued to obtained my Master's of Public Health with a concentration in epidemiology from Georgia State University, and I've been afforded the opportunity to work at both the state level, a county level, as well as the community level with providing preventative services around HIV and STDs for the past 4 years. So last year, I actually began my own organization, Sexcetera, which is a sex-positive STD prevention program that offers sex-positive STD prevention to primarily college students. I was also afforded the opportunity to begin a social media platform, hashtag Talk Dirty, Stay Clean, which encourages young adults to have positive conversations about their STD history with their partners, because I was able to find, after participating in the hackathon, that 100% of people that ever tested positive for an STD never inquired about their partner's HIV status or STD status. Whereas 80% of the people that I was able to interview that never tested positive for an STD actually inquired about their partner's STD history. So I am glad to be able to be here and to provide any resources to you all that you all may need, and that's it.
All right, thank you. Thank you to the entire panel. So I was taught that if you look at a man or woman's bank account, you can tell their priorities based on what they spend money on. So a few days ago, we had the President of the United States. He came here to headline the issue of opioids, okay? He was right here in Atlanta. I looked at the actual budget proposal from the White House, and I read this over the air maybe about a week ago. And it clearly says that roughly $3 billion is proposed to be cut from community block grants, which directly affects programs like this. So let me start with you, Mr. Sperling. What is the significance in a $3 billion cut in federal funding to programs like yours? And anybody else can take it once Mr. Sperling finishes.
Well, it's absolutely huge. For any of these programs, any of these activities that are represented on this podium or at this table, requires dollars and cents. These things just don't come out of just are not created out of the sky. So it takes dollars and cents. For a man to be such a capitalist, despite need for the community, I think is a tragedy. So for him to cut block grant dollars is negatively affect Stand Incorporated and many other programs, because these are opportunities for us to not only converse with you and have conversations with you. We don't build programs at Stand Inc. In a vacuum, and we don't build them from some high ivory tower. We want to come to you and talk to you about what would be the components for a program that you would attend. What are your thoughts concerning building programs and what you need? And we can't not do that. We cannot hire staff. We can't create internships programs for you without the dollars and cents that Mr. Trump has cut from our budget, just in the community block grant dollars. He's cut some other dollars too, but to your point, just the community block grant dollars is absolutely huge, and I think it's a tragedy to the work that we're called and have a desire to do.
So that is a tragedy. That is the word that you want to use. My program that I work with at TRIS 180, the Treehouse program, it's a substance use disorder program, and it's free. It's absolutely free because of funding, because of the funding that we get from the states and at a federal level. So when they cut that money, we have to cut jobs. We have to cut programs. We can't take the money, we can't reimburse our employees so they can, because we're a community-based support system, like Stand Inc., we go to you. Because sometimes it's really scary in the beginning to come to us, to come to our office with the bright lights and the people smiling. We go to you and we meet you where you're at, and where your friends are at, and where your family members are at, and where the community stands. And if we don't have that funding, how are we supposed to do that? So yes, I'm heartbroken to hear that. Unfortunately, I was not aware of that, but now I am. Yeah.
Yes, that really is a tragedy, just to cut that funding, because I know at juvenile court, we have the drug court program, and we've been running the drug court program for over 7, maybe 10 years now, and a lot of the funding that we're getting is coming from a grant, so a grant from somewhere. That shows that there's a great need out there for the money, because if we don't have this money to provide the services that's needed, there are services such as counseling service. We have to make sure that we create a body of multi-systematic, empowerment wraparound service for everyone that are involved with drugs or whatever kind of service that is needed. And in order to create that, we need the funding. The funding source must be there, because without this funding source, we cannot provide the service that the community needed. And at juvenile court, currently we're operating on the grant, and we want to make sure we sustain this grant. And without this funding, we may end up losing probably the drug court, probably some staff members that would be able to provide the service that's needed. To go into the homes, like my friend over here just said, we provide service in the community, not just come into juvenile court, but also go in the community, be in the area where the needs are. And so to cut the grant, to cut that funding, it's really going to impact our community greatly.
This is what I would say. One of the things that we do, and I tell my youth trailblazers, is that youth has a voice. And so now you hear what your president is doing, and he's making decisions for you on the community level. If there's no never time, no ever time, no better time, is that we got to vote. And the only way we can make a difference is to put the people in power that's going to think about us first. And so, yes, what happens is, and what we see is when we go to these meetings, is that it doesn't affect them because it's in their backyard. It affects us because it's in our front yard, and it's knocking at our door. And the only way it's going to change is that you come in as youth to make a difference and let your voices be heard. But when you see your mama and your daddy sitting there in this voting day, you need to let your voice be heard. Mom, you going to go vote today? Because I can't vote yet. I'm not of age. Dad, you going to vote today? I'm not of age. I need somebody to go vote on my behalf if you're not going to vote on yours, so that our communities can be able to get the funding that they need. We can come back and say every day what we know that they're doing, but until we make a difference and until we come back and say no more, and that's where you all as youth are standing up and being able to say, it doesn't make me no difference what you say. I'm going to get you out that seat. That's how we do it.
Yeah, it is devastating, but I looked at several options, not saying a solution. Look at forfeiture. I think as we become more civic-minded, where do all this forfeiture money goes to? Most of these counties hold about $1 million on property seized, vehicle seized. Where's that money going to? I was invited to go to Ohio. They were able to pay my expenses. So if you're going to spend about $20,000 to do a symposium on opioids and substance abuse with forfeiture money, where's the money going into the community? And so we need to look at our local legislators, this forfeiture to DeKalb County, Fulton County, with all these housing, drugs, these $1 million mansions seized, where is the money going? Secondly, when we start suing Big Pharma for the abuse of the opiate content, how much of those dollars are going back into the community that is disadvantaged? So we need to be advocates, stay on top of our game, and again, read legislation. I know each month on legislative period in the state of Georgia, they have a behavioral health legislative section that they send out every week on the updates of the bills. Be civically minded, go vote, press your councilmen, your senators and stuff. This is what I need for, I think this year we got more money for the SSP, sterilized syringe program. Get that voice, get that money. Where can we get the funds from? Where's the forfeiture money? Where's the sheriff's, where are those cars at? Where's that housing project money at? And give it back to the community. So we need to be advocates and begin to research where are these dollars going and then request these dollars back into our communities.
I want to piggyback off what he said. You may not be able to be old enough to vote yet, but you have a voice. And you can go to the Capitol and advocate. You can go and tell people your stories. Tell them about yourself, your friends, your family, what's happening in your community, because that will drive their votes to change our bills that fund us as a state. And it brings programs. I love when January pops up, because I go to the Capitol and I get on those stairs, I go to the rooms, I talk to the people, I find out what the bills are, and I get involved, man. That's what you can do. You can get involved.
Awesome.
Yeah. I have one thing right there.
Sure, go ahead.
Dr. Harley, who spoke earlier, the hospital authority, I worked in another program where they give block grants. I received a $25,000 grant for them to go into the housing projects in Fulton County and do mentoring for a cohort of kids from 14 to 17 females, and it was so good we got money for adults. So these are other, like Dr. Hurley, other programs, they have block grants. They're out there giving dollars, but we need to research and put ourselves in touch with these individuals and get those resources.
All right, so for my next question, I'm going to pose it and then invite Commissioner Larry Johnson. Where's Commissioner Johnson? All right, so grab him for me because I have to do the live remote, and make sure you guys stop by the live remote table. We'll be broadcasting from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. There's been a shift in prevention services now. Treatment clinics and treatment programs are now shifting to prevention. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about prevention for young people their age, because conversations they have can be more impactful than conversations we have. And there's a personal story. I remember when I was probably in the 10th grade, I went to a DeKalb County high school. And back then, the hard drug of choice was cocaine. And I remember going into a bathroom and one of my closest homeboys took out a sack of cocaine and started snorting it in between class. It shocked me. I had no idea. But I also had no idea how to converse with him about it either. I had no idea how to talk to him. I didn't want him to do it, but I had no context for conversation. But if I did, maybe my homeboy wouldn't be on crack today. And I remember that, and I still talk to him. I still go in the hood and visit him often, but he's on crack. But he started snorting cocaine in the 10th grade. So what can be done to connect a message to them that they can connect to their peer group?
So let me address that by saying right now, Stan Inc. has a program called Project Connect. We had talked a little bit about it at the end. So that program is designed to bring you to the table. When I say bring you to the table, not only from an educational standpoint, but also getting information from you, what you think would be the core factors in building a prevention program. Any one of these folks in this room at this summit today with these orange shirts on that say Stan, if you have an opportunity at the break, get with either one of them and they can tell you about Project Connect Prevention. And what we're doing is incentivizing. There are some incentives involved in connecting with us on the prevention level. We talk about HIV, hepatitis, and substance use, but we also are encouraged to build mentorship programs. And we want to hear from you what mentorship programs would look best for you. We don't want to build it without you being involved in the conversation. So again, prevention, addressing what Dr. Ritchie talked about earlier, it's on the table right now for us. So at the break, or when you get an opportunity, any one of the individuals in the room with those orange shirts on that say Stan, let them talk to you about Project Connect Prevention and get you involved.
All right, let's give it up. Let's open it up for questions. As we get ready for this last one who may want to respond from the panel, we have 2 mics in the aisle. Please, you all, if you have a question, that's a burning question, please step to the mic. Any panelists want to complete Mr. Sperling's thought, or we'll go straight to the Q&A?
I would like to say something.
Okay.
Another prevention that we're doing here with Kids on the Move for Success is, you see Jordan, who's about to stand and talk, he's actually our youth trailblazer. And one of the things that we do is do town hall meetings. And in my town hall meetings, it's all about you all creating it. I use my platform, but I allow you to bring in the topics that you want, the topics that you see that you are struggling with. You all created from the beginning to the end. And it's all about you coming back to say that this is what I'm struggling with. Some of the topics that they're talking about within that town hall meeting that we're doing October the 12th is, suicide. That's a big high rate within the teens. Also, bullying. Also, how do we come back in human trafficking? Come back and being able to say, how do I have a voice to be heard? So we have several topics that they have selected. I would love for you all to come to my table, sign up to be a part of the Youth Trailblazers, sign up to be a part of our community as we're coming back at the end of the day to change some lives of some babies.
All right.
And
Yes.
From a juvenile court perspective, how we tackling prevention. One thing that I know, we educate first our probation officer, our staff, making sure that they are aware of what's out there, making sure that our staff educate not just the youth, but also the family on a whole, making sure that they are aware of what drugs are out there in their community. While we are not seeing a lot of opiate in our community right now, does not mean it doesn't affect their family member or their friends in different neighborhoods. So we're making sure that education is a primary factor and making sure that the family as a whole is aware and making sure that those messages are transcending to everyone that we can reach.
Okay.
We're starting at Chris 180. We're starting this hashtag Recover Young campaign, and we're starting at the social media platform because that is where our youth are. Mm-hmm. We're in the social media. We talk to each other. Snapchat. That's number one. Let me tell you, every kid at my program is loving their Snapchat. So it's really up to the individuals that we're working with for you to come up with what you want to talk about. What do you think this looks like? How do you want to educate and advocate? So we're doing podcasts, and we're taking them and sending them out to the social media. And then it's up to the youth to want to post that, to post something that's going to be preventive and educational and just be daring and post these things to let people know what's going on out there, to let them know that the marijuana is laced and people are dying, that it's not the safe drug to use anymore. Y'all have a voice. I can't say that enough. You have the strongest voice out there, not mine. Not anybody who's up here. Your voice is stronger than mine when it comes to the youth of the community.
Yeah, as another thing is to do your, thank you, piggyback on what you're saying, your PSAs, your public service announcements. We do 5-minute ones, DVD, put them in the barbershop, beauty shops, because people need to hear from people who look like us and get that message across. So I'm getting my hair cut, and that population is like 16 to 24, and that PSA is on. I see the faces in the community talking about the prevention and what they're trying to do. It's relatable. And the only thing we can do is do the PSAs and showcase it and market it in our own community. And every 90 days, switch up with some new faces. And that's how that message of prevention will get out there. And again, it has an impact because it's not me lecturing you. You telling folk where it is, where they're going at. You know the street. I mean, I look at Atlanta, Broad Street. I have had people barred civilly from going on Broad Street because where the drugs are. So again, you can be that catalyst to send that message out on a 5-minute PSA, get that DVD to that barbershop, that beauty salon, let them play while other young people getting their hair cut, send the message out.
All right. Questions? You heard from our panelists, and you all are now present in terms of where we need to go. Please, young man, come on up. And anybody would like to come to this mic, you can use this mic, but we want to hear from you all.
Good evening. It was great what you said about getting them out there and being an advocate, not being daring. Because a lot of times as a youth, we sit back and look at those around us. If they're not posting it, I'm not going to post it. So that's how I feel like we look at it as a youth standpoint. And coming from a community that's drugs are always around, what is the best option to get away from there if it's so constantly in your environment?
Well, the good things develop safe activities. And what I always tell people is to get a group of people in a sober and drug-free environment, bowling league, tennis, basketball, where it's a drug-free zone. And once people have fun doing an activity and nobody's smoking, nobody's drinking, you don't ever realize how much fun we're having. So you can develop that, and I'll give an example. In my lifetime, I had people in my family who were addicted to alcohol. So I have a brunch each year where there was no alcohol allowed. And so you would come and to partake. And if you went outside and you drank and you got to my doorstep and you started stumbling, I'll give you a plate and say goodbye, happy Merry Christmas. So the key is that we can create that environment, and you're young, you can do it with peace, fun, and love, and it will be acceptable.
All right. Thank you.
And if I may add to that, at DeKalb Juvenile Court, we have the drug court program. We have mental health court programs. And so with those programs, it keeps the young people engaged. Not just those programs, but on a whole, we realize one, like my friend over here was saying, once you get engaged in extracurricular activities and you stay involved, because it's unfortunate you're in the community, that's where you live. But how do you stay engaged to keep your mind occupied is one thing. And once you're doing things that you love, you would probably 99.9% of the chance you will stay away from drugs, because you're so busy worrying about all the activity, the sporting activity, whatever the case may be, in addition to your schoolwork. Those things become a priority. And once, stay involved in extracurricular activities, stay involved in getting the support that you have, those positive support that you have. They're there. They're your teachers, they're your neighbors, they're your friends, the support is there. Find those positive support people in your lives and hold on to them. Because unfortunately, like I said, you are in the community, you live in the community that the drugs are there, ready, waiting for you. Just waiting for you to just give you that, that little bit of weakness. And if you are aware and making sure that you educate yourself about the drugs, when those time pops up, as in, okay, here's some drugs to take off some stress. Here's some drugs to alleviate the anxiety. When those time pop up, you'll already have the knowledge and the experience, and not the experience, but the knowledge and the education to say no and go back to your support. And that will definitely help you.
All right. One more question. We got one more.
I wanted to add to that as well. So what Project Connect at Stand Inc. has the intent on doing is actually offering multiple ongoing events at our facility, because I know as a young person myself that trap and paint is in, brunching is in, school is about to get ready to get out. So what do the kids do during the summertime if you do have drugs constantly around you and that peer pressure is always involved? I invite you all to come to Stand Inc., where we'll be offering ongoing events such as mocktails and conversation where there is no alcohol involved. I also like to use this as a motivational moment, because I think it's important for the young adults in the room to hear that if those are the types of things that are going on in your neighborhood or in your environment, the same people that are there now, unfortunately, will be the same people that are there at the same place where they are right now doing absolutely nothing 5 to 10 years from now. So as high school students, what I would encourage you all to do is to volunteer. Use Eventbrite as a resource as well, because there are many leadership opportunities available via Eventbrite. There are many different networking opportunities available for high school students as well via Eventbrite. So it doesn't have to be, or your time does not have to be consumed with what is going on in your neighborhood. It's up to you to make the difference and to go out and actually look for additional resources or safer events to engage in. And again, I'd be more than happy to direct you to whatever resources you may be interested in if you are looking for an outlet.
All right, one more. The panelists, I want y'all to, I want just one more minute. Each of you respond. We're going to have one more question, and one panelist going to answer. So because I got to get us back on track. So you want to...
I wanted just to say, to one of the things that Jordan's, sometimes you can't go outside of your community. So sometimes you may have to be that leader within the community. And it may be drugs and all that around you. Find that person that's there that you see that's the strongest, and start going with them to be able to say, let's connect and change this community around. because they may be the strongest in selling the drugs. So now what you do is connect with that person to be able to change what your community is. And when they start seeing you wanting to do some positive things, and then you get that strongest person with you, and now they see both of you all collaborating, you can't do nothing but start changing the community around. And what I will say to you is this: in the beginning, when you first do one event or do something within the community, it don't have to be anything big. All your community's got an ice cream truck coming around. That may be the day that you go and get the smaller kids an ice cream and bring them over. It may be a basketball thing. It may be something that you start with small. But what I will say to you is, whatever you start with, don't give up. Because today it may not look like it's changing, but tomorrow somebody's going to remember the impact that you did 4 or 5 years ago when you first started.
Great advice. Another question?
Yes, this particular question is for Ms. Douglas and the other young lady who works with Chris 180. What is the percentage of increase in terms of your caseload of children who have been involved with human trafficking connected to the opiate drug crisis?
Great question, thank you. It's very difficult to give you a percentage of number of kids that are involved with opiate and human trafficking. One thing I can say is that we don't see the number of charges coming into juvenile court relating to the Schedule 1 or Schedule 2 drugs, which include the opiate. What we do, however, see is the number of kids testing for drugs, for Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 drugs. So there's a higher rate of kids being tested for for opiate drugs. Now, are those kids involved in human trafficking? We're not seeing that link. I cannot really give you a number to say there is a linkage. Although we do know that there's a high rate of human trafficking in DeKalb County and that are coming through juvenile court. And when we do identify those kids that are involved, we make sure the authorities know, such as the police or the task force that involved, because we have to make sure those kids are getting services immediately, both on the drug side as well as the human trafficking side. So we want to make sure that those kids, as soon as we identify them at the juvenile court, we are linking those kids with services or taking them out of the community and put them into a safe place.
All right.
So in my experience, I've got 2 sets of experience here. I've got my recovery pathway, where I reach back to the one who's still struggling, and I've also got my job field. More than half in both recovery or both situations have had some type of either trafficking or sexual trauma, or they've been pursued with drugs. It's very, unfortunately, it's very hand in hand. It happens more times than, in my experience, it's more than half. And those are the ones who tell me. Those are not even the ones who don't say anything, because they're scared and they still feel ashamed and they feel like they have done something wrong. So it's something that is out there, and it's a direct pathway when you get into those type of drugs. And people know that. People know that. So you have to be aware that if you step into the world of that kind of usage, you're more than likely going to be confronted with these situations.
Thank you. Next speaker right here.
Now it's on. Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right. Wasn't working for the kid for a second. This question is for you, Ms. Sheree. So one of the things that that I've noticed in the line of work that I do, which is probably similar to you, I do intervention work with my agency. I work around a lot of people who were ex-substance abusers. And they go out in the community and work with others who are current substance abusers in the effort of trying to, get them back on the right track and get them off of substances. Being that, you've been clean for you said 6 years now?
Almost.
Which, by the way, congratulations. I don't want anybody in this room to sit here and act like 6 years isn't nothing. 6 years is a huge deal. 30 minutes alone from doing substances is a big deal. So 6 years, congratulations on that. How do you continue sobriety even though you're around substances that could potentially hinder your sobriety?
Great question.
So it kind of piggybacks off of that last comment. You're always going to be around somebody who uses. They're always there. I have family members that use. My mom is out there. I was in the foster care system, but I have a close relationship with my mom today. And you're never not going to be around something. It's there. It lurks around. It's in every dark crevice. It's in every bright crevice. It's there. You just have to make a conscious decision to stay connected. The opposite of addiction is connection. To be willing to not shun or, make somebody feel ashamed for using, because that's just going to push them away more. That it's about being open to doing what's right, the next right thing, where you're focusing on your studies, you're focusing on your family, you're focusing on your future. Because if you're focused on that, you can't focus on using dope. It's not going to be the thing that's going to be in front of you. And that's what I've learned that's empowered me to stay in recovery, is I do believe in God. God, by the grace of God, I am alive today because my past was different. So really, I give it up to that, and I give it up to the fact that I've education, avocation, and willing to help, and staying focused on what's in front of me.
All right, next question. Right here.
Okay, so my name is Brandy. I'm from Columbia High School, but my question is that a lot of times when we try to have fun together as teenagers, it's always seen as something bad. Like now, growing up, a lot of the things aren't for us. There's curfews everywhere. We can't go to the mall. We can't go anywhere. There's even curfews at the arcade. Like what's going on? So my question is, how do your programs differ from everything that's going around? How do you keep the teenagers from getting bored? Because I think that's one of the ways that we become substance users, because we're bored and we don't have anything to do.
Wow.
Okay.
So
one person.
Project Connect Prevention uses a non-adultism approach, adultism is the belief that adults are more superior to those that are younger than themselves. So by using that approach, the age range is between 24 to no older than 35. So that being said, we aren't too far removed from where you all are. So we understand being bored. We understand wanting something to do. Our prevention services or our workshops that we all do with you are geared towards you. For instance, we, like I said, aren't far removed from the types of music that you all listen to. So by discussing hip-hop music that's relevant to your culture as well as our own, because we are considered millennials, we are addressing those things in a way that's attractive to you all. And if it isn't attractive, because I tell my staff all the time, if I'm bored, I don't like being bored. So with that being said, we try to encourage fun ways of educating you all. And if you all have any suggestions as to how to keep you all engaged in the services that we are providing, then we are more than open to hearing those things and trying to incorporate some things. For instance, a few weeks ago, we actually had a trap and paint event, and it was for youth between the ages of 13 and 24. So we're hosting things like that because we believe that it may be attractive to you. But if you have any suggestions, then please let us know, because we can, by all means, we can make it happen.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hello, can you all hear me okay? Deirdre Pierce, I'm a community advocate, and it's a great segue for the question I was going to ask you and Mr. Sperling. Have you all thought about having maybe a pilot, what is the name of your program, Project Connect in a high school?
to respond, yes. We've thought about those things, but to take those thoughts to fruition, we need to continue to have the conversations and to have people like Commissioner Johnson and others to join us with that, trying to get in the schools, getting in the schools in DeKalb County or any other county for that matter, because parents are very, very careful about what their kids are involved in, and rightly so. So yes, these are things that we are interested in doing.
Okay, and I'd like to have a conversation with you about that afterwards, okay?
Absolutely.
And I do have one question for Dr. Harris. The forfeiture money, can you go into a little more detail about what that is and where to find it?
Well, it's different for each county, but we know that through seizures, that they confiscate drugs from drug dealers, housing, real estate property. You have to probably contact the local sheriff office and say, where's the forfeiture money and how much is it going back into the community? In some states, they mandate that at least 20% needs to go back into prevention. And if it is, who are the prevention providers? So again, seek that information out with your local sheriff and your local county.
Thank you. Next speaker over here.
Yes. Good morning. I am Rosalind Hill. I'm actually representing DeKalb County Board of Health today. We also have a table outside here on the sidelines. But I just wanted to, I have a heart for young people. I'm also a mom of teenagers, 16 and 18. Pray for me. And so I get it. The young lady, again, that stood up and talked about, that they're bored and that they do want to be connected. I believe that you want to be connected. I believe that they are part of the solution. At DeKalb County Board of Health, one of the things that we definitely have seen, we've seen a shift, of course, in the funding sources. We've talked about that a couple times today, and we've had to be very creative. One of the ways that we had to be very creative is by partnering, connecting with other organizations. I see a lot of people in the room that we either have funds from or that we get resources from, or that we actually have a couple of students from McNair High School come and participate in our youth violence prevention work group that we have at DeKalb County Board of Health. Unfortunately, when I came on board a couple years ago, we had a youth violence prevention grant that ended, okay? And so there was no money. And so when I came on board, we had to find creative ways to continue to bring the community together so that we can create a plan around violence prevention. Well, we're still there. We're still meeting. There's no money, but we do have partners and we have resources and we have youth that come together. So Dr. Rashad Ritchie also talked about connecting with organizations so that you can be a part of the work and a part of the solution. We're always looking for volunteers, interns, and a lot of times those turns into job opportunities. So young people, come see us. Come, sign up on our sign-up sheet out there. Come get some information. We have flyers on the work group. We have a variety of different resources at the DeKalb County Board of Health. We do sports physicals. A lot of people don't even know that.
All right.
And one more thing, before that, social media is a way for youth to speak positively and create positive messages. Oftentimes, there's so much negative out there. We have a guide that can help you with that. So please come see us.
Go to the table. Yes.
Okay, my name is Makaya. I'm also from Columbia High School. And going back to what you said about the president's budget cut, instead of in this community at least, furthering gentrification, building all the expensive houses and whatnot, and building the Family Dollars and all that around here. Why don't we see any therapies or rehab centers or any of that being built? But it's always, Family Dollar, liquor stores, and...
All right. Great question.
Let me say this, and this is where I said to you all earlier about your voices are powerful and they need to be heard.
That's right.
And so when we do the community town halls and you all come and create them, these are great questions when you have your commissioners, because Commissioner Johnson was on our last one, and when you have we had Dr. Green from the superintendent. So when you have those adult panelists there, these are great questions that you're asking. And the reason why they do that is because no one in the community has said or stood up to say that you can't have this in my community, but I want this. So when you don't fight for it, you get whatever that's left over that who needs to be something. So you'll see a Walmart everywhere. You'll see a liquor store everywhere. They're not bringing that into community because you're not having the conversations to be able to say, this is what I need. So it's for you all to come out more, to be able to say, don't let this be your last time coming out because Commissioner brought you all out. When you see town hall meetings and when you see things that are going on and legislators doing stuff, go out and be able to say, when they get ready to vote on stuff, I'm sorry, I object. I don't need that. I don't want that next door to me.
Right.
That's when they're going to change it. They're not going to change it as long as you're sitting in your house with your video games, playing on them, and you don't get up out and be able to have your voice be heard. That's when it's going to change.
That's right. And that's where we need your voices. I think we have our next town hall meeting will be over here. There should be some flyers out on the table in June. Come on out because we'll have it and we'll have all the agencies out. But we had passed a law to make it sure that if you wanted to do any type of drive-throughs or alcohol outlets, package stores, you had to have a special land use permit. So a lot of those companies got together and went to court and overturned our law because you go to Wesley Chapel, in certain areas, you got about 6 or 7 liquor stores all on the corners with the gas station, the grocery stores, and the courts overturned it. That's why we need your voices to help us to get more of those positive things in our community. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I'm Michaela from McNair High School, and I had a question for Ms. Sheree. I was wondering, how does your past struggles motivate you to pursue the field in which you work in?
I no longer look at them as struggles. I look at it as education. And it's a powerful piece because there's this little line in a book that I'm very, very passionate about. It says, you will not regret your past, nor wish to shut the door on it. So my past is my biggest resource to help the next person because I can develop this connection that only somebody who's been through it can. It's kind of like thinking about somebody who went overseas and they fought a battle. You can't connect with that. I can't connect with that. But somebody who went overseas and fought a battle can. And they help each other and their camaraderie. So that's what my past does for me. It was a struggle. It was different. It was hard. But I'm able to persevere over it. And so are the other people who I get to help.
Thank you.
All right. Good. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello, everyone. My name.
Move it up. Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Xavier Peterson. I go to City Grove High School, and I'm a part of the Mini City Grove. And this question is for anyone that wants to answer. So in my community, I feel like the biggest problem is the lack of education. And Ms. Tuff talked about how we all need to vote. But a big problem is that a lot of people don't know what is happening in their community so they can make the proper vote. And Ms. Sheree, she talked about how when she heard that Donald Trump came and he said he wanted to cut grants, but she didn't know that that happened. And a lot of us don't know that. So how can we make sure that our community knows that? And how can someone like me make that known for everyone else? And also, another problem that I see is a lot of my peers, they see a problem in their community, but they don't know how to come out and make that voice known. Like, they don't know how to use their voice. So how can we, as a group, talk to our peers and let them know how to use their voice properly?
Great question.
So let me just be really brief with that. I'm always inviting teens, young adults, in conversations. So there is no good answer right now for that question from my perspective. But collectively, we can respond to that question. So in this brief moment in time, to give you something that you can really walk away with would be difficult for me. But stepping to our table, or any table up here for that matter, and having a discussion, because in another moment of time where we're not pressed for time, we can talk that through and see what works, what won't work, what works for you, what works for us. There are some things that we can talk through, but Rhea mentioned earlier, we can make this happen, but we need you in a more relaxed environment for us to explore answers for that particular question.
Yes.
And can I say something? One way that we're doing it with our youth trailblazers, that's why I have the youth trailblazers, and you see Jordan that's here. My youth trailblazers come in and they communicate with each other. We have group chats. They talk about what's going on and all of that. And then they're now creating what they're going to be able to do in the community. So I would say to you, you can come over and be a part of our youth trailblazers. And so we're going to, we put stuff on social media. So when you see my platforms on there, then that's what you see. Those are kids creating that. So I give you the platform to be able to let your voices be heard, but it's about how you all communicate with each other to be able to bring each other in, to collaborate with each other. Because there may be one thing that you may be struggling with, and somebody else within the group chat or what they're seeing that we're posting and all that is their solution to what you just said. And so I would say to you, being a part of that youth trailblazer allow you to be able to do that, but it also gives us a private group chat that no one else knows what your secrets are, because it's good to have your secrets sometime in the closet.
That's right.
If I may just add real quickly, start utilizing, watching your local channel, like your DCTV, your school channel, because there's a lot of information that are out there that's there, and it helps you once you're educated about what's going on, then you can start having those conversations. So go to your local channels, your DCTV, your school network, and get all those information.
And
that's a good way to start.
Yes, and then you can also connect with us. I'm willing to bring whoever you want, whenever you want, as long as you get the people. You got to have the people. I want one person, but you get me enough people, and we'll bring whatever service you need to get answers from. We'll have it for you. We have a resource guy. I don't see my number in here. Is my contact information on here? But, okay, go to my table. But we part of this. We have our resources available, and we're willing to come out, and we'll work with Ms. Stroger, whoever, to make it happen. All right? I'm looking forward to doing it this summer. Yeah. All right?
I'll come.
All right, we'll come.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Great question.
Yes, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Jackie Johnson from Cedar Grove High School under the Ministry of Grove. So I noticed that Ms. Green said, like, most kids are bored, but, like, most things, like, if you keep them active, like a sports or a marching band, they'll go to it. But as soon as you try out, you'll make the team. But as soon as you hear band dues or marching band dues over $200, $300, first thing you'll say is, no, okay, yeah, that's not for me. So is it possible that we can set up a funding program for kids to stay involved, like with a funding program that helps them out?
Yes.
I have a question for you. How are you going to set up that fund? How are you going to make that happen?
I was thinking about having partnerships because the summit in place for that stuff like that.
And
the town hall meetings.
there you go. What about these guys?
Oh yeah.
Bring a group together. Come up with a plan. Present it to these folks. Present it to your parents. Present it to your school. You'll get that funding.
Let me say to you, too, that point is a point that touched me at the heart level. Okay, so you won't have a difficult time. If you put energy into that, to be able to establish a process or a mechanism, maybe not for everyone, but you can start a pilot here where we can start to look at that and different people being able to add to that pot. So some of these fees and some of these dues can be paid.
That's right.
Thank you.
Great point.
Is United Way in the room? Where's Kevin Eccles? I want you all to see that man. United Way, they offer grants to work with our young people. You see him, and he can help you get some of those things started. So, Kevin, stand up so everybody can see you. United Way, 211. Yeah, you're going to lead this conference with all the resources you need to be successful. That's why we're having it. It's intentional that you all are here today. All right, let's give it up for our panelists. Great job, great job. Now as they exit the stage, we're going to move to our next topic, which will be, how do you preserve the family? with Robin Elliott, co-founder of Georgia Overdose Prevention. So let's give our panelists another hand as they exit the stage. And I'll turn it over to Robin, and then she will talk for a few minutes, and then we'll go to an overview of the opioid epidemic with the National Association of Counties. All right. Hey, Robin.
Hi, everyone. My name is Robin Elliott. The heading says How to Preserve the Family. I don't know that what I'm going to talk about has the answer to that, but I'll tell you my story real quickly. I'm a person in long-term recovery, and what that means to me is that it's been over 28 years since I've had my last mind-altering or mood-altering substance. Thank you. I'm also one of the co-founders of Georgia Overdose Prevention. We're a grassroots group of people who came together just because of our own personal circumstances to try to get a law passed in the state of Georgia. This, and I'm going to put this on the table over here, this is my son, Zach. He scored over 700 on all 3 sections of his SATs. Played 4 sports. Not in high school, all 4, but I mean, along the way, he played 4 different sports. He started taking classical piano when he was 5. He picked up the guitar at 8 and pretty much never put it down. He was popular. He had a lot of friends, and he was also an opiate user. In Zach's sophomore year in high school, he knew my background. He knew that I was in recovery. He never saw me take a drink. I stopped when Zach was a baby. I didn't want him growing up in that environment. But he knew my background all along, and he knew that he had perhaps a genetic predisposition to some kind of, substance use. And when he was a sophomore in high school, he called me from a party, and I went and picked him up, and he said, Mom, he said, the kids were just turned 16. They were going to take the dad's car. They were waiting for everybody to go to sleep. They were going to go buy some weed, and he said, I just wanted to get out of there. So that was in October. In November, he went to a party, and they were smoking weed, and he tried it. And by the following February, he had tried every drug there was to try, including opiates. So Zach went from 0 to 100 in 3 months. Because of my own background, I figured it out pretty quickly and packed him up, sent him to Utah. He went out there for a year. He spent a year in wilderness and in residential treatment. He turned 18 right before his senior year in high school, came back. I didn't have the leverage. I couldn't make him stay anymore. He came back and went to his senior year of high school and freshman year of college here and just gradually ramped back up. And at the end of his freshman year in college, he came to me and he just said, Mom, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm sick of it. I don't want to live like this. I don't want this life. And so a friend of his had successfully gone to a treatment program in Tennessee, so I packed him up again and sent him up there, and he went through 30-day residential, 30-day three-quarter care, and then moved into a sober living environment and pretty much lived there for a year and a half. He relapsed twice during that time. One time he got back into the halfway house. The second time he went back through treatment. He was very willing, but it's a hard road. It's hard. Fast forward to 2010, he was coming home for Christmas. He had met a girl in AA that he was crazy about, and anybody that's ever worked a 12-step program knows that somebody that's got 7 months and somebody that's got 60 days really has no business getting together, but it's tough to tell an 18 and 19-year-old that. So they were crazy about each other. He was coming home for Christmas. I was nervous, a lot of triggers in Atlanta, but he came home and he did great, and I was so proud of him, and he went back on December 27th, and on December 28th, he relapsed in Tennessee with that girl. And I found out about it after a little while, and I went up and got him, and she went back into residential treatment. And honestly, talk about preserving the family. I was working, with every bit of my heart to preserve my family. My husband, Zach's father, had died of cancer when Zach was 4, and Zach was my only child. And after he relapsed and I went and got him in Tennessee, I didn't know what to do. I mean, I'm a person in recovery. I should know what to do. I should know how to help him. I didn't know what to do. So my in-laws said, why don't you let him move down here to Noonan, Georgia? I wanted him out of Atlanta because I knew there were a lot of triggers for him. And so he moved down to Noonan, Georgia with my in-laws. And, grandparents' rules. Church on Sunday, Sunday school after church, AA meeting every day, get a job, no car, period. And, he they aren't very different from my rules, but he did all that, and he was doing okay, I could tell, but not necessarily great. I just could tell he was struggling. He was missing that girl in Tennessee really a lot. Anyway, on the night of April 30th, 2011, he went to work and he came home at 10:30 and sat on the sofa and talked to my in-laws till 11. And at 11:01, he called his sponsor, his AA sponsor, and talked to his sponsor till 11:31. At 11:32, he called that girl in Tennessee and she didn't answer the phone. And at 11:33, he called the heroin dealer in Atlanta. And my in-laws had left the car keys on the kitchen counter, and he picked him up and got in the car and drove up to Atlanta and left the garage door open. I know he didn't want that noise twice. He thought it'd wake him up. He thought he'd get away with it and nobody'd ever know. The morning of May 1st, 2011, my father-in-law called me and said, Zach's taking the car. We don't know where he is. So I started calling him. You better get that car back here. Your grandparents are furious. And he didn't answer. So finally I started texting him. And as many teenagers know, teenagers don't always respond to their parents' texts right away, but I always knew one thing when I texted Zach and said, Zach, I'm scared. He would always text me right back, even when he was using, and he'd say, Mom, I'm okay, don't worry. So I texted him, I said, Zach, I'm scared. And I got nothing. So I started praying, please, God, let my son be in jail. Please, God, let my son be in jail. And I never thought I'd be a mother that would be praying that her child would be in jail, but I was praying with all my heart that my son would be in jail. But at 3 o'clock on May 1st, 2011, 8 years ago yesterday, I got the phone call from my father-in-law that they had found my son's body in the back seat of his grandparents' car in the English Avenue neighborhood of Atlanta. He had died of a heroin overdose. So we just started doing what people do when they lose a loved one, and moved through that week. His friends all flew in from around the country. They were all juniors in college and came to his funeral and came to help me and to say goodbye to my son. And we buried him on May 7th. And on May 8th, there was an article on the front page of the Atlanta Journal-Constitution about 3 kids in Milton, Georgia had all just died of heroin overdoses. And I mean, back in 2011, I'm just saying, they weren't talking about this all over the place. Like, it wasn't on every news program. It wasn't just highlighted the way it is today. So I wrote the reporter, and just for no reason, I was, deep in my grief, and I just wrote her an email and just said, my son died too, and told her about Zach. And she wrote me back a very kind email, and that was kind of it. And then the dominoes just started falling. She called me in 3 months later and said, I'm going to write a story. I'm going down to the English Avenue neighborhood to write a story about the Atlanta Harm Reduction Coalition. I didn't know what harm reduction was. I didn't know what a harm reduction coalition was. I thought I'd go because I really just was looking for a reason to get out of bed every day. So I went down there with her and I met the folks there. She wrote a newspaper article that came out. Again, nothing. 8 months later, I get a call from the people at the Atlanta Harm Reduction Coalition. They said, some people just came in here, a couple, and they've lost a friend to opiates. They're thinking about trying to get a law passed in the state of Georgia, and we thought of you and thought you might be willing to help. I had never stepped foot in the Capitol. I mean, I had no idea how to get a law passed. I mean, they were calling it a Good Samaritan law. I didn't know what that was, but I thought, maybe it'll give me something to have. I mean, I have a full-time job. I'm not saying I don't have anything to do, but I mean, just something of meaning to do, of meaning. So I went to a dinner in Midtown with this other couple, with Mona Bennett from the Atlanta Harm Reduction Coalition and myself. And I affectionately describe it as 4 idiots sitting around trying to think about how to get a law passed because we didn't know anything. I mean, we literally didn't know anything. We had no idea how to get a law passed, how to even start. We found out, we knew we needed to get a sponsor, and gradually some other people joined us, and they told us we had to get a Republican sponsor because the Democrats were going to be on board with this kind of a law, but the Republicans were going to dig their heels in, say no way, but if we had a Republican sponsor, they would grease the wheels of the Republicans. So we started naming people, thinking about people, and one of the people said, well, how about my representative? Her name is Sharon Cooper. She's chairperson of the Health and Human Services Committee. She's a Republican. She's a nurse. We're like, great. She's on our list. One of Zach's best friends was doing an internship at the Capitol, so I called him because I thought maybe he could help us because we had no idea what we were doing. And I said, would you be willing to try to help us do this? And he said, absolutely, Ms. Elliott. And I said, what are you doing down there at the Capitol anyway? And he said, I'm interning for Sharon Cooper, the chairperson of the Health and Human Services Committee. So we just couldn't believe it. And he got us an invitation to Sharon's home, and we told her about our children. I told her about Zach, and we told her about the boy that had been driven around in the backseat of his car with his 3 friends. He was overdosing in the backseat. His friends didn't know what to do. They were scared. They weren't bad kids. They just didn't know what to do, and they thought he would snap out of it, but he didn't snap out of it. He died in the backseat, and instead they got to call his mother and say, I'm sorry, but Stephen's dead. And we told him about Randall, who was dumped on his parents' front lawn in McDonough, Georgia. They woke up to go to church on Sunday, and they found their son on the front lawn dead. And many, many other stories. And at the end of our talk with Sharon, she agreed to sponsor our bill. And got a great bill writer down there at the Capitol who had lost a loved one to overdose. And so we went down to the Capitol in 2014. It's a 40-day session. You know, I heard so many of the young people today talking about, you know, what can I do? How do I start this? How do I start that? I mean, I was listening thinking that's what we were like. We had no idea what we were doing. We just did it. You know, as Sheree said, we just put one foot in front of the other and did the next right thing. Went to the Capitol with pictures of our kids and stood at the front door every day for 39 days, 40-day session with the pictures of our kids, chased people down the hall, no idea who the people were. We were chasing lobbyists. We didn't know who was who. And bill went through the House and it passed. Only 14 states in the country had passed this bill at the time, and we're usually not on the leading edge of this kind of legislation here in Georgia. 14 states had passed it. Went through the House, it passed, went to the Senate, they changed the bill. And for those of you that don't know, what that means is now it has to go back to the House, but lots of times then you're done with your 40 days, you've got to go all the way to the next year. So we were afraid, but we went ahead with it, and it went back to the House on the 39th day. We saw the bill called up, and we had been down there since 8:30 in the morning. It was 8:30 at night. We were all just volunteers, you know, just a bunch of really heartbroken people is honestly who we were. And we were sitting in the gallery about 8:30 at night on the 39th day of the session, and we saw the green lights go up, and we realized that, you know, this bunch of idiots had just passed the Georgia 911 medical amnesty and expanded naloxone access law in the state of Georgia. Thank you. So let me tell you a couple of things. You know, one of the things that people ask me a lot is, like, what would you have done differently? And, you know, I mean, I don't have a lot of guilt. I know a lot of parents that have a lot of guilt. I don't have a lot of guilt because I was a really good mom. I mean, I wasn't a perfect mom, but I really was a good mom. I just kept telling my son, stop using, stop using, stop using, stop using, stop using, because I didn't know anything about harm reduction. It's a hard thing for a parent to think about harm reduction with your child. But dead people don't recover. I wish I had known to say to my son, stop using, but if you're going to use, promise me you'll never use alone. Promise me you'll use safely. Promise me you'll always have Narcan with you. Promise me the 4 or 5 things that you need to do to use safely. And then when you're ready, stop using so we can get you into long-term recovery. Let me tell you quickly what the law says so that everybody in this room knows it. After we got the law passed, we stood with Governor Deal when he signed the bill into law, and we thought we were done. And then 5 days later, we heard about a kid that overdosed, and he was with his friends, and he died. They didn't call 911. We were like, what? And then we realized nobody knew about the law. So for the past 5 years, we've been traveling around the state. We do, we all have full-time jobs. But we do about 100 events a year to try to educate people on this law. And we ask the people that we educate to please pass it forward, because we can't go door to door. So please, please, I'm begging you to tell your young people, friends, tell people that you know what the law says. Number 1, don't run, call 911. If you're in the presence of someone that's overdosing or having another medical emergency as a result of substance use, and you call 911, and you stay with the victim until help arrives, and that's key. You stay with the victim until help arrives. Neither the caller nor the victim can be arrested, charged, or prosecuted in the state of Georgia for personal use quantities of drugs. Nobody in this group was trying to protect traffickers, but our point was it's more important to save a human life than to incarcerate one more small-time drug user. This also applies to underage drinking. if you're at a party and you're 17, 18, 19, 20 years old and you're afraid that somebody's having a medical emergency from alcohol, you're afraid to call 911, you're afraid that means you're not going to get into college, you're going to get a record, it applies to underage drinking. Call 911, stay with the victim. Neither the caller nor the victim can be arrested, charged, or prosecuted in the state of Georgia. Second part of the law has to do with naloxone, which is also called Narcan. It's the opiate antidote. And what that part of the law says is that any doctor can prescribe it, although now another law has been passed that says there's no prescription needed. Any pharmacist can dispense it, and anybody that knows someone at risk can carry it, administer it, without fear of civil, criminal, or personal licensing liability, professional licensing liability. No liability if you administer it. Normally when we do this presentation, we do a big naloxone training, and we're happy to come out. If anybody has a facility or something that they'd like us to do that, we'd be happy to come out and do a full training. And we dispense naloxone around the state, primarily to people that are at high risk. We look for people that are active users, people that are in recovery, people that are on some kind of medication-assisted treatment, sex workers, people that have had some period of abstinence, they're getting out of jail, they have a clean body for some reason because they're at high risk for overdose, and the families and friends of all those people. We prefer to dispense the naloxone. We get a grant from the state. We prefer to dispense the naloxone to people that don't have insurance, who are underinsured, or who don't have another way of accessing it. To date, we've dispensed over 18,000 naloxone kits in the state of Georgia to high-risk individuals, and we ask people to call us when they have a reversal from the naloxone. Somebody's overdosing on opiates and they use naloxone to reverse it. We ask people to call us. We've gotten, so far, we're aware of 1,950 reversals as a result of the kits that we've distributed. Thanks. Really, our mission is to keep people alive long enough to get into long-term recovery. I didn't preserve my family. I couldn't save my son. I tried really hard. Like I said, dead people don't recover. Our mission is to keep people alive long enough to get into long-term recovery. And our tagline is, where there's life, there's hope. Thank you so much. I'd be happy to answer any questions if anybody has. I wasn't expecting to take questions, but I'm happy to. I know you're short of time. Okay.
Let's give it up for Ms. Elliott. You got educated, harm reduction, great opportunity. Now I'm going to bring up Erin Harley from the National Association of Counties, and she will do an overview of the opioid epidemic. Let's give her a great hand as she comes forward. All the way from Washington, D.C. All right.
Thank you, Commissioner. Hi, everyone. As Commissioner Johnson mentioned, my name is Erin Harley. I work for the National Association of Counties out in Washington, D.C., and I cover our human services and education portfolio. First, I just want to say that I commend Commissioner Johnson, his staff, for putting on this event and having the tradition keep going. It really is incredible that you all are here today. Ms. Elliott, thank you for sharing your story. My heart goes out to you. And I just want to say before I jump into, my whole spiel that I had planned, hearing this panel this morning was just incredible. We, the National Association of Counties, we represent all of the nation's county governments. There are 3,069, right? But we're in D.C. So what we try to do is we go to counties, we hear from the community, from the residents, whether it be kids, high schoolers, parents, community leaders, of course, county officials. But hearing the panel today, your voices is what helps us advocate on your behalf when we're meeting with, the administration or members of Congress. And it's you all your perspectives that we can bring back to Washington, D.C. as a way to understand as a way for members of Congress to understand what's going on on the ground and how we can help assist you in providing services or funding for your residents. So again, I just want to say that this morning's programming has been absolutely incredible. So for my presentation today, I just kind of wanted to provide a national perspective about like what's going on with the opioid epidemic, specifically highlight some county examples that are really innovative, how leaders within a community have brought together multiple local agencies to provide services to their residents that may have substance abuse disorders, and then provide some local recommendations that NACO has developed over the last several years working with county leaders and counties across the country, and then finally just give a quick update about what's going on in Washington, D.C. as it relates to addressing the opioid epidemic. So with that, I'm not totally sure how to... Oh, next slide, please. Thank you. So first up, for our first county best practice, this is kind of addressing the whole family approach that we've already talked about in the panel this morning that's been brought up time and time again. Many of you know that in Ohio, the state of Ohio has been extremely hard hit by the opioid epidemic. Because it has been hit so hard, the state actually saw a huge uptick in the number of children entering the foster care system. Their child welfare systems were completely overwhelmed. So in order to address this issue, the state's attorney general implemented this pilot program. It's called Ohio Start. So how it works is that it actually involves 19 different counties across the state. What happens is that if a county child welfare agency receives a referral of parental substance abuse, the Ohio Start team, which is a caseworker, a foster care caseworker, as well as a peer mentor who has experience with substance abuse treatment services. This team goes into that household, assesses the situation. They actually conduct a drug test on the parent or parents, and then they also do a trauma assessment for the child or children. So after they conduct those tests, if the drug test comes back positive, the parent is offered the opportunity to immediately enter into this Ohio Start program and also receives substance abuse treatment services. And then if the child shows signs of trauma, any sort of adverse childhood experience, that child is actually referred to the appropriate mental health services. And after a family enters into the Ohio Start program, they're actually visited on a weekly basis by that Ohio Start team that I mentioned. And those peer mentors visit even more frequently, 3-4 times a week, whatever the family needs. And they actually provide transportation to these services, whether it's the mental health services or substance abuse treatment services. And then they also help the family actually navigate the child welfare system, as well as the behavioral and mental health systems as well, too. So again, this is just a pilot program, but it's been operating for the last several years, and it actually has had really incredible outcomes. So, today we're talking about children and families. We want to acknowledge that it's not just a one-generation issue, that what we have to do is think of the whole family when we're addressing the opioid epidemic. Next slide, please. And then another example that I wanted to highlight too, that I actually had a conversation with one of the event participants this morning about this. It's in DeKalb County, Tennessee. So oftentimes with the opioid epidemic, we see that individuals that are arrested that enter into the county jail system, they're released, but they go straight back into the community that they came from, that they might relapse, and so they just re-enter the court system again, or the criminal justice system again. So it's not helpful. And actually in DeKalb County, their jail was over capacity. So in order to address the issue of recidivism, the county created this program, A New Beginning, and it's a really innovative program that's a Jails to Jobs program where it connects recently incarcerated people with local employers. So how it works is that after an individual is released from jail, they enter into a 2-week process where they are actually supplied with their basic needs that they would need to kind of get back up on their feet. They're helped assimilate back into society, and then they're actually also paid a minimum wage when taking a life skills course. From there, they enter into a 6-month-long program. They're offered full-time employment. Typically, right now in DeKalb County, there is very low job participation rates, so a lot of factories are looking for jobs. So what they do is that the individual goes right into this full-time paying job. In addition to that, they receive financial counseling services, and then they also receive GED coursework if needed. So again, really just another holistic approach. You know, if an individual is released from jail, they need support. You can't just leave them out. And so that's one of these examples that we really want to highlight, that we're really trying to show counties across the country, you know, what they can do to help that individual. And then, next slide, please. And then the last county example that I just wanted to quickly highlight, Ocean County, New Jersey. This is another innovative approach. It's a little bit of a different take than the last two. What this does is that it actually connects individuals who have overdosed and were revived by naloxone. It connects them with what they call a recovery coach. So it's the recovery coach program, of course. But the local hospital actually does outreach to different nonprofits that do work with substance abuse treatment facilities and services. So the individual is connected with a recovery coach, and they really help them, you know, get on a path to recovery and make sure that there are any sort of relapses. If there are, then they're able to provide services and whatever they may need. Next slide, please. So from there, I just kind of wanted to highlight some of the local recommendations. And I mean, the questions that you all were asking were like incredible. I really, really wish I was as smart as you all as I was in high school. Like, those questions were amazing. And when we talk about local recommendations here, we're not just talking about, you know, elected officials, commissioners, supervisors, you know, adults. Like, we're talking about everyone. You know, when we're talking about you all can get together and make an idea for a new program, you can definitely do that. You all really are the future. So for some background information, NACO as an organization, about 3 years ago, we did release a report for county officials and counties across the country that provided federal, state, and local recommendations. However, that was 3 years old. And this epidemic has continued to grow across the country. So we understand that those are old. We need to update them now. So just wanted to, you know, quickly go through those, and, you know, would always love to hear your feedback if these are realistic or not, because again, you all are on the ground. So the first that we have is exercise strategic local leadership. We understand that as county leaders, again, whether it be county elected officials, high school students, directors of community organizations, you all have expansive networks. But what needs to happen is that you need to connect those networks to ensure that resources are actually geared towards specific services, whether it be preventive services or, you know, workforce training that we talked about. Again, it's creating a cross-sector of all of these local agencies that can come together, and groups within the community that can actually speak out and address the opioid epidemic within your local communities, and then, you know, eventually on a national scale too. The second recommendation we have is emphasis on preventative and educational initiatives. And we've already talked so much about this. I will say that everyone on the ground is at a unique position when it comes to educating one another about the dangers of prescription painkillers or the lethality of other illicit opioids. So we talked about traditional forms of communication to get this message out, right? Town halls, pamphlets, but then also newer forms of communication, Facebook, Twitter, podcasts, Snapchat, you know, you name it. And if you're able to utilize those means of communication and get the message out about the opioid epidemic, how it's impacting your community, ideas that you have in addressing it, that's just going to be even more helpful. And one thing that we do want to stress too, when we're creating these messages, that oftentimes we had seen in the past, there was a stigma associated with substance abuse disorders, right? So we definitely want to be careful when we're crafting those messages to avoid any sort of stigma against these individuals. And another important part of this too that we have talked about also is engaging students. NACO is a strong believer, and we have plenty of examples of different high school or even middle school programs that have been implemented across the country regarding, again, educational programs, educating about the dangers of opioids, but also per se, you know, say a student maybe has a parent who has become an opioid victim. How do you identify those, the actions that they're maybe taking or partaking in, and how do you reach out to either your teacher or another adult in order to make sure that your parent seeks the help that he or she may need? Our fourth recommendation is expand access to addiction treatments. And as Ms. Elliott was talking about, the bill that she was able to pass regarding naloxone, we definitely believe that in order to address the opioid epidemic, there have to be a sufficient number of accessible, safe disposal sites within, your community, so that members of the community can dispose of unneeded opioids. And we believe that local pharmacies, physicians, and law enforcement can serve as important partners in providing and promoting safe and convenient disposal sites. And again, information about these sites should be shared widely, either on web-based or non-web-based forms of communication. Our fourth is implement a criminal justice response to opioid misuse. We know that traditionally, if an individual was using opioids, they would, be arrested and go into the criminal justice system. They would be released, but then again, it's a revolving door. What we're trying to do now is encourage that rather than have law enforcement or public safety officials just arrest this individual, they actually divert them to other services. So whether that means drug courts, public health services, substance abuse treatment services. And it is a huge component when you think about it that law enforcement needs to work with different local healthcare providers and those drug courts to ensure that individuals are receiving the services that they need. And then finally, our last recommendation is mitigate local economic impacts and consider new economic development strategies. It's no secret that the economy, local economies across the country, have been highly impacted by the opioid epidemic. Actually, in Georgia, among other states, we're the most severely hit by the opioid epidemic. And so with that, local job participation has declined as a result, leading to weakened local economies. So another recommendation that we have, similar to one of those county examples that I highlighted, the Campbell County one, is for local leaders to connect the criminal justice system with local employers to not only, one, identify gaps within maybe local businesses that they're in need of individuals for work, but also to provide that workforce training to those individuals that are being released from jail in order to set them on a path to recovery and well-being. And next slide, please. So just again, really quickly, I know we talked about President Trump and everything that he's doing, so I just wanted to highlight kind of what's going on in Washington, D.C. regarding some funding towards federal programs that address the opioid epidemic. Last year, President Trump did declare that the opioid epidemic was a national health emergency. So that elevated the issue on a national scale, even though, it was pretty already nationally known. But I will say that more recently, the Department of Health and Human Services, they announced this, the state opioid target response grants, which these grants are actually, they're worth $437 million, but they're actually coupled with additional funding, which totals $1.4 billion in grants. So states and counties and other territories can actually apply for these grants, and they can be used for services, as you can see on the screen, such as identifying gaps in current treatment activities and capacity, expand access to medication-assisted treatment, and then advance substance misuse and prevention. And then in Congress, NACA was actually really excited to see this happen. It was in 2018, right before the new Congress was sworn in January of 2019. They were able to pass a comprehensive opioid package. So President Trump signed that quickly after Congress was able to pass that. And there were actually some really great provisions in there that would allocate funding for additional services when combating the opioid epidemic, whether it be preventative services or other substance abuse treatment services as well. So now kind of looking ahead, the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate are holding hearings in D.C. to understand how they should actually implement the provisions within this legislation. And then next slide, please. And then Also, just wanted to quickly overview that in addition to Congress passing that package, that there was additional funding allocated to a number of programs in these various departments. You'll see $16 million specifically for rural communities in the Health and Human Services Department, $1.9 billion for the Substance Abuse Prevention and Treatment Block Grant. There was also increases for the National Institute of Health as well as the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. And then finally, U.S. Department of Justice, we saw an increase in for opioid reduction activities as well as drug courts. Next slide, please. All right, this is my final slide, but it is actually really related to one of the questions that was asked this morning, and we were talking about how the Community Development Block Grant was actually eliminated in Trump's budget request, right? Which is huge. NACO does not support that elimination, just by the way. We do not agree with it. In addition to that program, which obviously supports a number of programs that combat the opioid epidemic and provides funding for supportive services, this program, the Social Services Block Grant, which is also an entitlement program like that Community Block Grant that we were talking about earlier, this block grant can actually be geared towards specific services where residents and communities need them the most. So related to the opioid epidemic, the Social Services Block Grant has been used for substance abuse treatment, child welfare and child protective services, at-risk youth services, as well as adult protective services. And the Trump administration has also called for the elimination of this block grant too. So again, it would take away critical funding that is being used to combat the opioid epidemic. So just so you all know, NACO's been working to advocate against both the elimination of this block grant as well as the Community Development Block Grant. So, again, just trying to support our counties and how funding is being used to address this issue. But with that, that's all I have for you today. I would love to either answer questions or talk to you all after. Again, you guys are the voice on the ground. We're just in Washington, D.C., and our organization is really nothing without your all's input and perspectives. So thank you.
Put that last slide back up. I want you all to see this before you go to your next sessions, and we got breakout sessions that are going to happen after we finish. Do you see these young people, what the impact is going to be if these programs are eliminated? So what y'all going to tweet out or Snapchat, or what y'all going to start advocating for? Y'all going to start advocating that we keep the funding, right? And you see the impact of it. So if you all have an email, if you all are signed in, or Ms. Troja got an email, or you all have an email, we will email you this presentation. So you'll have some talking points on what you need to be talking about and why you should talk to your congressperson, your U.S. senator, and email the president on these issues. But I want you all here on purpose because you all are advocates. You're being educated. You're going to focus on advocacy and training. And now the workshops you're about to go into, they're breakout sessions. You divide yourself up to go in. But these are the key things on why you're here today, is because this impacts you and our community. And we have to stay on the forefront. So now you're responsible for this because now you know. You can't say you don't know. So I set y'all all up to come. So you're here, and we appreciate you. Now we'll go to our workshops, and then we'll have lunch after that. So please go to your workshops, pick a workshop, and then we'll have lunch. A great lunch is being planned for us. But I want y'all to go to the workshops, ask plenty of questions, and listen. Thank you all. Give all our presenters a great hand. Thank you.